I grew up in Wanaka, most magnificent landscape. This place that definitely rubs off on you and influences how you think and how you see things. It's doing us a favour by being this beautiful. In the studio, it's educating us how to live. I really like to see more architects step up their game in terms of designing better buildings. We can't keep producing buildings that need to be torn down in 30 years' time because they're not very good. We should be leading the charge, making buildings last longer and be more durable and be less energy hungry. We almost need to stop talking about it and just say, look, let's just do it. That's our vision.
My name's Matthew Ridge, and I'm in Wanaka, a place I've spent a fair bit of time over the years, going back before it was a tourist hotspot and before everybody wanted to move here. Rafe, this is your big backyard, unbelievably beautiful.
It's stunning, yeah. Every time I come here, it blows my mind too. Most beautiful place to live.
Rafe's showing me some of his favourite New Zealand homes, designed by other architects, as well as examples of his own work. What I know from the get-go is Rafe is a quiet achiever, a multi-award winner for his carefully crafted houses that often make ingenious use of tight spaces and difficult sites. Rafe is passionate about building better, especially in terms of energy efficiency and sustainability. I know he believes architects could and should lead the way here, so I'm sure he's going to give me plenty to think about. This is Ripon Vineyard and Winery, established by Rolf and Lois Mills in the mid-1970s on land that's been in the Mills family for over 100 years. Young Rafe spent a lot of time here at the family home because he was a schoolboy mate of the Mills' son, Nick. Clearly, the location speaks for itself, but I'm wondering why the design impresses Rafe so much. He's chosen it as the first of his favourite New Zealand houses to show me.
What's really special about the house is how it's laid out on the land. What they did was create these splayed foundations at the bottom, which sort of spreads the load more evenly to the ground. It's almost like draped around the contours like a necklace. And it provides this sanctuary on the leeward side of the wind. So it's very sheltered, very green, and it's aged so gracefully. I mean, it's nearly 50 years old. When I was a kid, I visited the house and admired it. But I think at that time, I didn't know what I admired. It was just the intangible feeling of, you know, this is a really nice house to be in.
Ah, yes.
It's pretty special. You come through the entryway there, there's a compression of the space, and then it's released into a higher space. And then off to the side, we've got little glimpses of the view, just as a teaser for further on. And also to the side here, which is quite interesting, as a little spatial eddies of spaces off the main route.
You walk in here and it feels like history.
Yeah.
Oh, look at that.
It's almost decompressed again, not only in height, but also the width and the views. But it's not a huge view, but just really focused framing.
It's so beautiful. I really like these, Rafe. The exposed beams.
It's very special.
Gives a real character. Definitely got that French provincial country, like, it feels really European. But the real piece de resistance for me is this room over here. Like, that is just so cozy, eh?
Yeah, quite a little intimate space just off the main arterial route through the house.
Great little pocket, sit by the fire, armchairs. Like, I would move from here and be sitting there reading a book. Obviously, you got the view. But you're right, how it also opens up and then because you've got another little space you can come into.
Just to the side, yeah.
The bedrooms and other private spaces are all contained in the rear wing of the house that completes its wrap around the hill and the windbreak for the garden. This oasis is lovingly tended by Lois Mills, who still lives here, enjoying the house she and husband Rolf planned so carefully more than 40 years ago.
We were starting off something completely new. We could have gone and lived down in the old homestead block with the established trees, but Rolf, being who he was, he wanted to do his own thing, not his father's and his grandfather's. And he'd always sat on this hill and thought, if ever I had the opportunity to live in Wanaka, this is where I'd want to live. And then we started thinking about, what sort of house we're going to have. We had 3 generations. So it was going to be a 3-generation home we were building.
To design their dream home, the Mills made a bold choice. Young Dunedin architect, Ashley Muir.
We wanted to integrate something modern, and Ashley was modern. He travelled, he could see our vision, and it was exciting to have somebody who was straight out of university with new ideas. He designed a house for us.
Are you happy with what you got?
I wouldn't change anything.
In time, the Mills family home was joined by another substantial building on site, Ripon Hall. This was the hospitality and function venue Rolf and Lois had long planned, but never seemed to find the right architect for, until the right guy did come along, Rafe Maclean.
My only concern would be dealing with a friend, and can be quite intimidating, and particularly when I'm, his friend's mother. And we'd have to make sure that Rafe understands that I have very strong ideas of what I would like in this building. Rolf and I have been dreaming about it for years. We're building a building that's going to be part of our community, which was what we wanted, to have a community hall. None of us have been in hospitality before, so, then we needed expertise from Rafe, designing the kitchen, and, we wanted a sprung floor because you want to dance.
It was a tall order for Rafe. Still early in his career, a high-profile commission with a lot of boxes to tick, and lots of expectations to meet from his good mate's mum. No pressure then.
So we're in the entry of the Ripon Hall, and I think this is probably one of the most special places that I am really proud of this building. The materials in here are very rich in detail. So we've got the rammed earth walls combined with the rammed earth floors as well, and lots of timber with colour highlights with the red going up the columns.
Yeah.
Also, why it's special is that it's a spatial compression. It's lower, tighter, and as you'll see as we go into the hall, it expands out.
Now that is magnificent. Look at that. I tell you what it reminds me of, and I hope I'm not going to offend anybody here, but it looks like it's an upside-down Viking ship.
Yeah, it definitely has resemblance to a vessel.
Doesn't matter how many times you've seen this view, if you're from Wanaka or wherever, it is mind-blowing, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm definitely privileged to be involved in this project, to take care of this view and focus whoever's in this room towards that.
Certainly the view is a showstopper, but the materials are eye-catching too, in their own quiet way. This is concrete.
Yep.
Is that coloured concrete or what's it? Because that looks different.
No, that's stabilised rammed earth. So it's earth taken from the excavations from when we built the place, mixed with clay from Codrona and with around about 5% cement. So we've got the earth that makes up the walls, and then we've got the timbers that were milled from trees from the site.
Oh, so all this is literally from off the land?
Yeah, from larch trees.
Off this bit?
Yeah, yeah, and all the ceiling timbers. The brief for the project was very special. The biggest thing for me was listening to the Mills family and what they were after, but also listening to the land and the meaning behind it, and the culture and the history of the place, and tuning into that and pulling it all together into a buildable solution.
On the face of it, the Mills House and Ripon Hall are very different. But listening to Rafe, I'm starting to see a connection. There's continuity here and deep friendship between Rafe and Nick Mills, who is now Ripon's winemaker and general manager.
We grew up in the family house, you know, and it was built by Rolf and Lois back in the 70s out of rammed earth and timber off the property and all of the cupboards of the old tractor shed benches and stuff. And I guess as humans growing up on a piece of land and being actually surrounded by that place and those materials growing up just roots you to the place, you know, because it's the earth and the timber and everything that's around you. And so I suppose when we talked to Rafe about building the hall, it was like, well, we want to do that as well. If you build a building for your community and you want them to feel held by that place, then of course it makes sense to build the building out of the materials as well. So rammed earth, get the dirt out of the cellar, ram it into the walls and build all of the structure out of the timber off the property. So once again, you're surrounding the people that come here in Ripon itself.
I'll tell you what, I'm thirsty. I really want to taste some wine now. It must be delicious.
Oh, it works, it works.
I'm sure
it really does.
I'm sure it does.
Designing Ripon Hall was a huge boost to Rafe's early career, and all the sweeter because it's a significant landmark in a landscape he knows so well and cares so deeply about.
Total respect and gratitude that I was asked to be involved. Huge responsibility, especially at that period in the practice. I was a sole practitioner at the time, so yeah, good adventure though, it was fantastic. In 50 years' time, hopefully the hall should be there still and be mellowed into its site as much as the Mills House has over its 50-year lifetime.
While Rafe Maclean's architectural studio was in Wanaka, he commutes most weeks from Dunedin, where his wife and 2 children live. Here on a site no one else apparently saw any potential in, Rafe designed and built Kōwhai House, and he's invited me for a visit.
G'day, Rafe. Great to see you again. How are you?
Wonderful, yeah.
Good, mate. Well, amazing house. And holy moly, what about the site it's built on? It's like on a cliff face.
Yeah, it's a good Dunedin site. We had to make sure we could actually do it.
Yeah.
And we came up with a design that actually worked. I guess the key was keeping things very simple, structurally.
As I'm discovering, keeping things simple is really difficult, and Rafe made things even more interesting for himself by deciding to design and build a passive house. Claimed by some to be the house of the future, it's something Rafe's been into for quite a while.
Around about 10 years ago, I had a project where I had some quite direct feedback from the client after they moved in, and the feedback was that it was just using too much energy. It was a bit of a eureka moment because I thought, hang on, I'm supposed to be an architect here. I'm supposed to design enclosures and places for people to live and thrive in and be comfortable. It wasn't working.
It would have really thrown you off.
Yeah, it was kind of like, hang on, I need to learn more here. So it was a bit of a reset in my education. And so what I did at that point in time is went away and re-educated myself around building science and became a certified passive house designer.
Now, I've never visited a passive house before, but they're well known overseas and starting to create a buzz in New Zealand as well. So let's see how they stack up.
Oh, yeah. You cantilever over the cliff.
Yeah.
Isn't that magnificent, eh?
Yeah.
Really is. But the first thing I've noticed is actually walking in here is it's really cozy. Like almost like I could take my jacket off. Is it true, if it was 5 degrees outside in Dunedin, that you would come in here with no heating, it would be, what, 20 degrees
Yeah, 20
inside?
to 21 degrees.
That's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So
A certified passive house is all about comfort. Air doesn't escape. So any heat that you introduce to the space stays in the space. And they can, even if you cool the house, the cool air stays in as well. So it's kind of like a thermos.
Let's face it, New Zealand building standards have come a long way since a 1940s house like this. In those days, people typically built with whatever they could, and houses often had no insulation whatsoever. Government regulations in the 1970s introduced a compulsory minimum level of insulation. Since then, the standards have been progressively strengthened, and new builds today benefit from double glazed windows and the use of more modern insulation materials. However, passive houses take all this to a whole new level. Everything is super insulated and tested to make sure there are no gaps at all. A house like this is completely airtight.
Wow, look at that. Like that is like, what is that? Is that double glaze or triple glazing?
Triple glazed, yep.
And look at the componentry on that. That is a really heavy door. And so that's one of the main aspects of being able to build this particular type of house.
Yeah, totally. The windows are quite key for the glazing to let energy in, but also stop energy going out.
Yeah.
And the frames are quite different to typical New Zealand aluminium frames.
Yeah.
You won't get condensation on this.
So no condensation on that, no condensation on the windows. Awesome.
The temperature and air quality inside a passive house are controlled by a special ventilation system that recovers heat from the outgoing stale air and adds it to the incoming fresh air, eliminating the need for expensive extra heating. In fact, Rafe tells me this ventilation system costs next to nothing to run. Even better, it's healthier too.
I get hay fever.
Yes.
And the system filters out pollens and particulates from cars and pollution. You know.
So it's a healthy house.
It's really healthy. All the stale air is ventilated out and fresh air is brought in and the heat is exchanged in that crossover.
So in summer it's nice and cool?
Yep.
And in winter it's nice and warm?
Yes.
So your energy bill will be like...
It's small. Yeah.
Wow.
The initial construction cost is often higher, but the overall operational energy use or expense is low. So over time, it pays itself off very quickly.
So that's all really good news. But Rafe tells me designing a passive house places demands on architects they may find restrictive.
It's pretty difficult. You have to work with a different aesthetic because everything's a little bit chunkier. The walls are thicker, the window frames are thicker. You can't have too much glass because you'll overheat. It gets quite scientific quite quickly. So you get these sort of very efficient buildings, but not very architecturally
not interesting.
Yeah. So for me, that was a bit of a challenge, is that, how do we make really well-performing, comfortable architecture
that still look cool?
Yeah, that's right.
And that have a design aspect.
Yeah.
Looking around the Kōwhai house, though, I can see Rafe has been able to inject his architectural flair, and the hallmarks of his style are plain to see.
I love this. So if you had gibboard here to really lower the ceiling?
Totally, it'll be a totally different space. I think having the gaps, going up between these joists gives the room much more volume. A lot of interest too. I love sitting on the beanbags and looking up and just seeing the play of light around them. But this yellow strip here hides all the wastewater pipes from upstairs bathroom.
Yeah.
And also the ventilation ducts.
Okay.
Some grills at the end here.
Most of the homes Rafe designs nowadays are fully certified passive houses. If building better in New Zealand is the objective, Rafe believes passive houses tick all the right boxes.
I really wanted to break the cycle of us building bad housing, especially for the next generation, because we've seen houses at the moment that were built from a previous generation and they're failing us. And so I really wanted to do better buildings, and so that our next generation, our children and our grandchildren, inherit these buildings and say, well, these are wonderful buildings to live in. Architects have a huge part to play. They should be leading the pack in terms of embracing new technologies, a low embodied carbon future, embracing low energy use. If we reduce the energy demand of our buildings, the infrastructure to supply those buildings drops, so it helps everyone. And I think passive house is key to making our buildings better, but we just need to work on the aesthetics. And I think that the Kōwhai house is a good example of that.
Rafe Maclean felt the call of architecture early, as a young lad working for his father on his building projects. So it was no surprise, in his late teens, Rafe moved from his hometown of Wanaka to Wellington and enrolled at Victoria University.
It's pretty spectacular.
Amazing. Wellington on a good day.
However, he soon discovered a young architect's lot is not that easy, especially in this city.
What I do know about Wellington is the sites are small, and more often than not, they're really difficult.
Yeah, there isn't much land to build on. So either you're renovating existing buildings or trying to squeeze something in as infill. So you have to think quite creatively and think of solutions outside the box quite quickly just to make things work. There's obviously the slope of the hills, the access, and then you've got the weather, the climate. I mean, it's blowing one way in the morning and another way in the evening. And I think that set me up quite well as a thinker. My view is that for a good architect is to see a pathway forward and be optimistic. And there's lots of hoops to jump through, people saying no to you, and finding the pathway through all that, I think that's the key for good architects to have their work built. That's the art and architecture, is making that all work.
One house in Wellington that Rafe particularly admires was designed for a tiny scrap of land by architects Gerald Melling and Alan Morse. Their small and beautiful design, nicknamed Music Box, is the second of Rafe's favourite houses by other architects.
Well, Rafe, you weren't wrong when you said the sites in Wellington are reasonably hard. It's probably a little bit of an understatement, but...
Wait till you see this one.
Isn't that cool? Look at that. That's just popped out of nowhere.
Pretty special way. This is one of my favourite buildings. Its width is so nimble to its height. It's like 5.4 metres high, 3.6 metres wide.
Oh, it's only 3.6 wide. Oh, you can't see that from here, eh?
It looks huge.
Yeah, it looks really imposing.
So the depth is quite deceptive from here. The other thing is its construction. The use of vertical trusses. Usually trusses are used horizontally. And in this case, they've been used vertically as studs to support the building. They not only hold up the building, but they brace the building, but also act as dividers inside the building for the spaces. It's a very economical way of using elements in a building because it doesn't just serve one purpose, it serves many purposes. So you get a lot of bang for your buck.
Should we take a wander inside and have a look?
Let's do it, yeah. Why I love Music Box is that it's a very simple design on a very complex infill section. Its footprint's very small and it feels much bigger than it actually is.
Oh, wow.
Pretty special way.
It really is. I didn't expect to see all this wood.
Yeah.
But it gives it a really warm feeling. It's really nice.
Yeah, it's a golden glow.
And the height of the ceilings as well, like it's just like you walk in and your eyes just drawn that way.
The other thing that makes it feel much bigger than it is the borrowed space. So lots of use of glazing to the bush. So
yeah,
it might feel enclosed, but you've got this big view.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I see what you mean about those trusses. We were talking about outside, the trusses and dividing the spaces. It gives you a nice little nook there to sit down. You've got a nook and cranny here, the kitchen and the area that I'd probably spend most of the time, which is, around the dinner table. Everything flows beautifully, which is what you want in a house.
Totally. Very human proportions, you live between the structure. And also the expression of construction, no plasterboard.
Yeah. To me, all this rustic stuff, the nuts and the bolts.
You can see what's holding the building up.
Yeah.
And that's quite unique. every bolt, every nail was still exposed. You can almost see the hands that crafted it. And I think that's quite special in architecture, is that if you can see that how it's made or how someone's spent the energy building it, it definitely adds to the richness of the place. And of course, the exposed, unweathered timber, it's just left raw. You live in it, and the timber, you know, ages with you. And I think that's really quite special. And you can smell it still.
100%, yeah, you can.
It's been 26 years.
Amazing, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's still really relevant, right? Like, if you came in and said, OK, let's do a reno, there's nothing to renovate, you'd be like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
We don't need to do anything.
It is a well-constructed work of art. That's why it's lasted so long, I think, is it's been really well put together, really well designed, and really well looked after.
Really well loved.
Yeah, totally.
The house was nicknamed Music Box because it was commissioned by Baroque violinist Bronwyn Pugh, who still lives here. Her brief to the architects was tight, especially the budget. But Gerald Melling and Alan Morse were champions of small, difficult sites and also believed architecture should be made more accessible and affordable to more people.
Gerald's response to the site itself was just so positive. And while I did have a limited budget, he said, oh, we can do something, Bronwyn, and it will be very beautiful. It will be a pleasure to build on this spot, looking out to the hills in the middle of the bush, and yet so close to Wellington. But the main requirement probably was that I didn't like playing my Baroque violin in a low-ceilinged room. So they took it to an extraordinary extent and gave me 5.4-metre high ceiling.
Yeah, but it's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't expect so many windows, but we wanted low maintenance building material, so we treated the glass as a building material. Not that it would have to be unimpeded for all views, but that it would be a low maintenance building product, which also wouldn't need painting. The other brief to them was that I did not want to lift a paintbrush. So again, they took me even more literally and offered me raw, unseasoned macrocarpa. So I went willingly with that.
Yeah, well, it's like, look, the result, it's magnificent, isn't it?
Yes, I've just been grateful to share it with a whole lot of students and many architects and many friends over the years.
And us.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Oh,
Thank
it's
you.
a pleasure.
Oh, it's been a pleasure.
Pleasure to see you both.
It really has.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's a real pleasant place to visit. And it's lasted the test of time because it was built really well. Coming up with a design that simple is rather complex, which contradicts itself. It takes a lot of effort to come up with something simple, and a lot of energy, a lot of rigour to bring all those things together and built at such a low cost and have such a fantastic result. And I think that's full credit to the architects on that job.
Rafe Maclean commutes weekly from his family home in Dunedin to his studio here in Wanaka. As an architect, Rafe Maclean is keenly aware of the challenges his Wanaka hometown faces, especially the issues around building in a place so many people want to be.
It's changed a lot since the 1970s, 1980s. Back then it was around 1,000 people. Now it's around 20,000 people that live in the area. And that changes in the holiday season. It balloons up to around 50,000 people. And that has produced a lot more housing, more subdivisions, and a lot more demand on land. What's happening is that we're building on all this land, but the reason why we came to this land is because we enjoy looking at that land. And it's been filled in with housing. So there's a fine balance there. It's unavoidable that the town's going to grow, right? And eventually it's going to be a city. And we need to plan for that. We try to think about in our projects is how can this land be used the most efficiently? If you think of the European towns, it's restricted to a certain area and then you've got nature all around it. We don't want our town to sprawl out and cover that nature. That's my vision.
A few minutes' drive from downtown Wanaka, Rafe was asked to design a holiday home on a tiny section, only part of which could be built on because of drainage easements from neighbouring properties. Rafe's inspiration here was a Department of Conservation tramping hut and a cheeky native parrot.
The brief was for a casual holiday place for family and friends to come and relax. The idea of a tramping hut was quite strong right through the design process. And the materials that we chose and the spaces that we formed, quite a different living experience from a normal house. We used the Kia as inspiration for the colour choices for this project. The greens from the feathers of the Kia bird, and then the orange from underneath the wings of the Kia. I think the Kia is successful for us because it's a fantastic use of land. It was a difficult project to pull off, a small project on a tight site, and I think there's lots of problems there to solve and lots of restrictions, and I think that in the gestation period of the design, all those things came together and we found a solution that satisfied them all. So this is the main entry to the house via outside deck. Quite a strange spot to have a bathtub, but it works really well. All day sun, brilliant view. You can only imagine how much this space gets used. And it's also the entryway to the house. So the entryway takes us straight into the living space. It has a very small footprint with a very big view. This is a very small building. It's around 65 square metres, one living space with bedrooms off it. We had to work really hard at making it work and making it interesting. We didn't want to use plasterboard, for example, and wanted to use a lot of timber and express the structure, but make it economical to build as well. And we wanted it to be fun, a fun place for families to visit and children to explore. So this is the bunk room. It has 6 beds in it, triple story. It's quite compact, quite playful, and also serves as the access way to the upstairs loft. Place for teenagers to hang out, so quite a special space away from the rest of the house, from the adults. When designing it, everything was sort of considered of having more than one purpose. So the sliding doors to the deck served as the entryway. The living space is a hallway, so there's no dedicated hallway space. So there's no door here to the main bedroom. What I like about this space is that it's private, but still open to the main space. And it has this amazing window to the mountain view up there. And also the skylight, which you can look at the stars at night time. The bedroom's not separate, so you can be in here and still experience what's going on in the living room. It feels very open and relaxed, not like a typical house. Because it's such a small space, it was quite key to make it interesting. And by doing that, it's creating lots of shadows in terms of the structural depth. And placing lights at night time, it sort of comes alive with light bouncing off surfaces, down faces of walls, etc. Really challenging the way we live in the holiday house is really important. So when you go back to your ordinary house, there's a real contrast there of living. And I think that what makes holidays holidays, because they're quite different.
With space such a premium in modern building, architects like Rafe are often challenged to deliver a lot with not so much. The last house he's showing me was certainly built within strict parameters, but proves when creativity and innovation are part of the mix, a little goes a long way. For the last part of my journey with architect Rafe Maclean, we've trekked right to the bottom of the South Island, to the southeast corner of a region called the Catlins. Here at remote Jacks Bay, Rafe's shown me the last of his 3 favourite New Zealand homes by other architects, and I'm hoping for big things.
It's a beautiful day, which is quite rare for this area. It's usually pretty rough, raining, stormy, windy. So I'd really like to show you this house. It's pretty special.
Excellent. So it's amongst all these cribs, I guess you call it, your South
Yeah,
Islanders.
cribs, yeah.
All right, well, let's go and have a look.
Okay.
I'm expecting a bit, because we've come a long way.
Jacks Bay is a popular holiday spot over the summer, but most of the cribs are empty the rest of the year, thanks to the pretty grim weather. There is one, though, that was built as a winter crib, because the owners wanted to visit all the time. And of course, it's this Jacks Bay crib that Rafe has brought me all this way to see.
My first take on it, Rafe, and please don't take this the wrong way, is it looks like an oversized piece of Lego, doesn't it?
Yeah,
It's very different,
yeah.
and it kind of doesn't suit its environment.
No, it's definitely out of place here in Jacks Bay. And I think that's what makes it very special. It's made up of things that you might likely find on the beach, like a porthole, some weathered timber, but put together in a contemporary way.
While Rafe admits this crib doesn't exactly fit on the beachfront here, he still helped judge it a winner in the 2021 New Zealand Institute of Architects Annual Awards. So I'm a bit confused and intrigued at the same time.
While the giant Lego box doesn't look like it should probably be here, the more you look at it, the more it feels like it should be.
Totally, it grows on you. And I think that makes it very special. The juxtaposition of the building in its context, that's one thing. But then when you get closer, the juxtaposition of the different shapes and geometries and the proportions are another level. And I think how they've done that, the architects have, it's really special.
I love that, Rafe, that window there.
Yeah, a special window, lattice window that you see around the light on a lighthouse. Same diamond shape.
Okay, there you go. Actually,
Go
really
inside.
interested to see what's inside. Hopefully it's going to blow our minds.
I think it will.
Let's go.
Yeah.
Oh. Okay. Wow, this is a surprise, isn't it? There's a lot going on.
Yeah, it's very different from the outside. Come in here and you're in a different world. Lots of the architecture features come to life. The big window to the north, little deck with a fireplace to the sea, and upstairs mezzanine floor. And just the materials and colours in here are just like very in contrast to the exterior, which is quite soft and gentle in the landscape.
Really cozy, though. Very cozy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. So you can lock that off and then open that up, and then you have that real, I'm in an outdoor fire.
That's right. But also close it down and you know, have that warmth and sort of security from the raging storm outside.
And that window,
Yeah.
it's a monster.
Yeah, it's pretty special. I mean, it lights this whole room up just with one single window. It's so unique. I mean, and just the way they've done the clear glass with the frosted glass, the composition is another exercise in itself.
Wow, there's a lot to take in, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's warm, it's certainly cozy, and very colourful.
So we've got quite a contrast here. The simple, plain exterior, albeit with the cool nod to nautical themes, and the rich, vibrant interior, clearly reflecting the personalities of the owners. And I imagine the mezzanine floor with the master bedroom and the view is going to be a knockout.
Shiver me timbers, look at that.
Perfect place for a working desk, great place for creativity. The difference with this house is the position of the mezzanine floor. So most mezzanines at the back of the house, and then you have a double height space at the front. This one, it's flipped over, so the mezzanine is at the front of the house. So it creates a tall space at the back. And what that does is sets up more livable space at the front of the house with a view, which is quite unique. And it's been done really well.
Well, it certainly works.
And the architects have just framed that beautifully. Landscape view, long. I think, you know, pulling the view down into a tighter frame enriches the view and it just makes it so much more powerful. This is the nod to a ship's porthole. And there's a couple of things going on here. We've got the lighthouse window, which when you're inside, it feels like you're safe and secure. Whereas here with the porthole, you feel like you're on a ship traveling, and you can sort of imagine yourself in bed looking out, and you're on a journey. So it's a fantastic place to take a holiday, but you're not going anywhere.
I tell you what, this place has grown on me. When we pulled up here this morning, I was a little bit sceptical, to be honest.
Yeah, I noticed that.
I warmed to it.
Yeah, it's much better than just a piece of Lego.
It is.
Yeah.
Very true, Rafe.
Yeah.
I'm glad you remember that.
You know, now I've spent some time at the Jacks Bay crib, I think my first impression was right on the money. It is a giant piece of Lego. So much fun. And of course, Rafe loves it. The imagination, the detail, the rigour of the design. Yes, it's challenging, but as Rafe well knows, if you're not testing yourself, you may be selling yourself short.
Someone asked me the other day when I was going to retire, and I was thinking, what? I've just starting, you know. Looking back, it's been a long process of learning and experiencing the nature of designing buildings, and I think it's really key that we keep learning, especially with climate change. We need to start listening to the environment and learn how we can live with it. So constantly improving what we're doing is key. Keeps me fresh, is actually learning new things all the time and improving.
So Rafe, unfortunately our time together has come to an end, but I've had an absolute ball getting to know you, going up and down the country, seeing some really magnificent architecture and getting to learn a little bit about you, yourself and your ethos. It's been a real privilege, so thanks and all the best in the future.
You're most welcome.
Should we go and have a surf?
Go on. Yeah.